Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this morning's webinar. Let's go ahead and jump into the topics for today. My name is Jackson Root, Content and Creative Marketing Manager at DTEN. And this morning, we have the pleasure of being joined by Adrian Boyd, our Sales Solution Engineer at DTEN. Adrian, do you want to say a few words, introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Adrian Boyd. I'm with DTEN. I see a lot of names that have known me over the years, and that I know as well. Just a little about me. I've been in the AV industry for way over 20 years. I've been in everything from installation and design through to consulting. So I'm really a good technical resource here at DTEN. Talk about our products soon and all the other things that DTEN does.
Certainly, yeah, we're happy to have you. So today we are talking about new hybrid work technology for 2023. This is something that we've been following very closely, obviously at DTEN over the last few years. And this conversation just continues to evolve. So I've been following a lot of analyst studies. I'm sure many of you have. And if one thing's for certain is that hybrid work isn't going away. It's not going anywhere. We'll probably see a bit of a decline in remote work, purely remote workers like myself, that don't ever report into the office. But hybrid work is something that has so many benefits and is now being treated as a benefit for employees. It's a way to attract and bring in new talent, right? Because allowing folks to have a better work-life balance, allowing folks to spend more time at home with their families, it's kind of better all around. And of course, as we're going to talk about this morning, there's ways to really make your workplace a lot more productive with some of these hybrid work strategies. So our main topics this morning that we're going to cover in this webinar will be building greater meeting inclusion and meeting equity. So we're going to talk about some of these new features in our products that will allow for that. We're going to talk about a more productive hybrid office. And then we're also going to give you a bit of a taste of what's coming in 2023. So we've got some new products on the horizon. There's some new features from Zoom Rooms and some of our other partners that we'll be presenting solutions for. And we'll have time for Q&A at the end. And also, as always, at the end of the webinar, you'll have a chance to sign up for a one-on-one consultation, or if you'd like to try any of the DTEN solutions that we talked about this morning, you can do that as well. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we jump in. We do have chat disabled as a best practice for webinars, but I do invite you, please, to use the Q&A function. If you have any questions at all throughout the webinar, some we'll pull out as we go, others we'll leave time for at the end. Please do use the Q&A function. All right, obviously this is a webinar, we're kind of talking at you, but I wanted to give you more opportunities to engage with us as well. And excuse my cat behind me there. So we'll have Q&A obviously, and then we have a couple of polls that I'm gonna throw at you this morning. So keep an eye out for those. And with that, let's jump right in. I threatened you with a poll, and here it is. Let's go ahead and kick this one off. We want to know from you, what are some of the challenges that you've been having in hybrid work? So have you been having issues with keeping remote employees connected, right? Making sure that folks that are reporting into work from home feel like they're actually part of the conversation? Have you been having any trouble preserving employee engagement? You feel like folks that actually aren't in the physical office, maybe they're not as engaged as folks that do report in every day. New collaboration tools. Are you seeing adoption of collaboration tools or lack thereof? And how about your existing spaces? Have you had trouble updating your existing spaces for hybrid work, for digital whiteboarding, for collaboration tools, annotation, content sharing? Or maybe it's something else entirely. So great, we're getting a lot of responses. I'll leave it up for a little bit longer. Just any last input there? Great. Very interesting. So let's go ahead and take a look. So it looks like the greatest challenge that you all have been facing, and Adrian, are you seeing the poll results as well?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Okay. So updating existing spaces for video conferencing collaboration has been a challenge. That's really interesting. Adoption of collaboration tools is up there. Preserving employee engagement is number 2. Yeah, that's absolutely incredibly important. And keeping remote employees connected. you know, I find that these numbers are very, very telling, and it just so turns out these are a lot of the topics that we're going to be talking about this morning. So thank you very much for your input there. So one thing about hybrid work and preparing your workplace for hybrid work is you really have to deploy the right technology. That's absolutely critical, and I think that that's telling in a lot of the numbers we were just looking at. Is keeping remote employees connected, preserving employee engagement, and also boosting adoption of collaboration tools really does require the right technology in place. You want to be able to provide those consistent experiences for every touch point, whether it's somebody who's at home, right? They want to be using the same UI. If they're walking into the office and meeting at the reception desk, maybe you might have a kiosk there. You want that same consistent experience at every single step of the way, whether they go to their desk or they're into a meeting room or huddle room, in-office phone booth, or a large conference room. Providing that consistent experience will improve that adoption because it's a familiar meeting experience in every place. Ensuring equal access is really important. You're doing that right now just by making sure that everybody has the ability to get on and to engage with their fellow team members. And then lastly, technology that's purpose-built for collaboration. This is really what DTEN was founded for. As you can see in the image there, it's so easy to use to whiteboard ideas, to annotate on top of content. You know, the new DTEN onboard that we released last spring, really it's built for collaboration. You put that thing in a room, it just elicits that kind of interaction with folks. So if you've been to any of our webinars in the past, you've probably seen this map before. And one thing that's really interesting about this workplace map is even though we created it over a year ago, these spaces that we have outlined here you're looking at are kind of the same, but the ways that we engage in these spaces has really evolved. So whether it's that bank of hot desks you see in the bottom left corner, whether it's that small huddle room you see kind of in the central left area, or that larger conference room on the right, with new features like inclusive view, with smart framing, smart gallery. You see the onboard there in the center of the room. It's really just, it's improved the way that we engage with each other in these spaces. It improves the way that we can hand off these spaces to the next team coming in, and just booking your spaces. It's become more productive. You know, I find that pretty fascinating. We're going to be talking a lot more about these things as we move on. So just give you kind of a brief rundown of our solutions that we have available today. You know, I'm not going to read through everything here on the chart, but certainly the D7 for Zoom, the D7s, those are the ones that most folks know DTEN for. That's the one that put us on the map. That's our 55-inch, 75-inch, also available in dual. This is the all-in-one solution. You put this in a room and you're ready to go. The next evolutionary step of the D7 is the D7X. This is something we just came out with, I believe, 2 months ago. The D7X has all the latest cutting edge technology for video meetings, video conferencing, collaboration, has improved camera technology, improved microphone technology. It's multi-platform. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later on today. Has new BYOD sharing features, which are incredible. And there's new abilities to extend more extensibility. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. It's really easy to add additional displays, to add additional cameras. The D7X, when we were designing this new product, we thought, what kind of a solution can we develop that once you put this in a room, it has so much longevity, can be added onto. It's almost modular in many ways. You can add more displays to it. It becomes a central hub, but it itself will live for many years in their space. The D10 On is our Android-based version of the D7. Essentially, it's all in one. It has a simplified user interface, very easy to use, very easy to deploy. You know, D10 On, we find those a lot in education. We find them a lot in training rooms, in spaces that, you know, really it's in the name, spaces where you need to be able to just walk into that room and immediately get going. D10 Go with D10 Mate is the solution for updating your existing spaces. The D10 Me, the use cases we're going to go through in just a little bit with that one. This is the 27-inch desktop device. I've got one on my desk right now. I'm sure Adrian does as well in front of him. This, the DTEN-Me and the DTEN-Me Pro, which we're going to talk about more today, with the new inclusive view. This is the huddle room solution where it has 3 cameras on the top of it that will capture participants in the room with face-on interactions. Pretty amazing technology. There's nothing else like it in the industry right now. And then lastly, the DTEN onboard is your digital whiteboard. So it has built-in operating system. It's designed for collaboration, annotating on top of shared content, whiteboarding new ideas. It's very easy to deploy. You put it on a cart, you can roll it throughout your office. It's really an amazing addition to any existing hybrid workflow. So let's go ahead and jump into the first major chunk of the webinar this morning. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to build greater meeting inclusion and greater meeting equity. And how can we talk about any of these topics without first defining something in DTEN that we call collaboration equity. This is a new term that we like to use when we talk about some of our solutions. We talk about hybrid work. Collaboration equity fosters a culture of inclusion and fairness where every team member has equal ability to participate and contribute. As an example, collaboration equity promotes productivity. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So, this idea of you can give meeting equity to everybody, right? The ability to actually tune into the meeting, be involved, but to collaborate, like you're actually in the room. That's really this next evolutionary step of hybrid work. And reading some of these studies I was looking at yesterday and last night going into this webinar, this is kind of the next frontier for hybrid work, is making sure that folks feel like they're heard, not just seen, but actually their input is received, right? And that they're actually understood. And you can do that with technology. So let's talk a little bit more about folks tuning in from home. Looking at the DTEN-Me or the DTEN-Me Pro, DTEN-Me Pro has some really powerful new BYOD features, which is kind of the improvement over the DTEN-Me. The DTEN-Me Pro really is the home office device. Built-in camera, microphone, touchscreen display, has a built-in Zoom Rooms, PZR, personal Zoom Rooms meeting software, and it makes for an excellent second monitor with DTEN Smart Connect. So with DTEN Smart Connect allows you to take one cable, and then you can access the camera, the microphones, the touchscreen system through an attached laptop or PC. So that's the way that I'm using it right now. So I've got my DTEN-Me Pro here off screen. You probably see my eyes jump to it every now and then because I'm looking at Q&A, looking at chat, and I was looking at the poll questions there. But being able to access the camera, the speaker system, the microphones, it's really just a very elegant, excellent solution for the home office worker. So Zoom Smart Gallery, right? We'll jump right into this one. Is really a very cool feature. So D7X and Smart Gallery play so nicely together. This is one of those features that when we talk to systems integrators, when we talk to facilities managers, it's a feature that once they enable, it's like, how did they ever not have it on before, right? It's kind of one of those things where you couldn't really imagine life without it. It's so powerful. So you can see in this looping video on the bottom right, it has the ability to pick out people's faces and then assign them their own individual frames. And why is this important? This is really important because it improves presence for every single person in the room, so that folks that are tuning in from home, remote workers that are tuning in, actually feel like they're having face-to-face interactions. They feel like they're in the same meeting space, even though they're not physically in the room. This is all about perception. This is all about feeling like you're actually having those eye-to-eye conversations that you would if you're actually meeting directly with these folks that might be in the office. So Smart Gallery is on the D7, the D7X. It really provides that equal presence and inclusion. Adrian, what are your thoughts on Smart Gallery since it was released by Zoom Rooms last year?
So Smart Gallery has been a really interesting product from Zoom, because the whole goal was that, we talk about the buzzwords of inclusion, but it was really kind of to give everyone in the meeting that's in a physical space, in a room, the Brady Bunch look that we all got used to sitting at our desks. So, but one of the unique things about it is our conference rooms haven't been really built for smart gallery. They've been built for traditional conferencing, and smart gallery is really one of those things that it's almost really, it works really well if you have like the old fashioned Cisco telepresence room where everybody sits in the same plane of view. But what's going to be nice is some of the new technologies that Zoom's kind of bringing forward with Smart Gallery, the improvements with the AI. It's going to really start bringing in, allowing multi-use spaces, spaces of different types of construction, a lot more flexibility.
Cool. Yeah, Smart Gallery is really powerful system. So keep an eye out for that on the D7X. I don't know if any of you folks are heading to ISE next week, but we'll have that running on a number of our displays. And it's amazing when people we use it in a trade show environment, right? And you can imagine this is a huge room, hundreds of people in there walking by at all different distances, and it's catching people way off and building these composite images of frames of folks. It really just an amazing feature. It works so well on the D7 and D7X. So I referenced it a minute ago. D10 Inclusive View is a new feature that we released just in the last quarter for the D10 Meet and the D10 Meet Pro. This is a very, very cool feature. So the D10 Meet, if you were to look closely at the camera system on the D10 Meet, and I wish I had a better photo of it here in this deck, there's 3 cameras and they're off axis. So there's one that's pointing straight forward, and then each one on either side is pointing to different directions here. And what it does is it allows for folks that are sitting in this sort of diner style that you see in this image here, where you've got a table extending out from the D10 Me, folks sitting left, right, and then center off of it. It can really capture them face on because of those off-axis cameras I mentioned a minute ago. So it really optimizes video capture of participants in small huddle rooms and in-office phone booths. And it has this 160-degree arc of horizontal field of view of those cameras combined. It really is an amazing feature. It ended up picking up the Rave Best of Infocom for 2022, which is very cool. We're showing that off at the show there. And this is a feature that you're going to hear more about moving forward, because it's really just a brilliant way to get kind of that same room experience into your virtual meetings. And this is available free if you have a D10 Meet or D10 Meet Pro. This is like just a firmware update. So it's included. You don't have to pay any extra for this feature. And it's really a very powerful system. By the way, I'm seeing a lot of engagement on Q&A. Guys, great. Please ask questions. Adrian here really knows his stuff. I see he's jamming through Q&A
typing as fast as I can.
Yeah, that's great. Keep them coming. Definitely want this to be more interactive with you. Otherwise we would have just recorded this call and sent it to you. So thank you very much for your engagement. And once again, just thank you for your time this morning. I know time is so scarce these days. So let's talk a little bit about productivity. I mentioned one of the great benefits of hybrid work is boosting productivity for everybody. And you can really do that by deploying these kind of really interesting spaces. Zoom certainly talks about these a lot, these in-office phone booths. The D10 Meet Pro has really become like the darling of these kind of interesting alternative in-office phone booths, these small huddle spaces, these small little focus rooms, these little group collaboration rooms. The D10 Meet Pro is an excellent candidate for deploying these spaces. With Workspace reservation, we're going to talk about that in a minute. You can book these spaces, you can set them up in the Workspace reservation as bookable areas. So from the front lobby or from a kiosk, maybe in like the middle of your office, you can set these up as reservable spaces. Somebody can walk up, reserve this space, pair it with their phone so that their own Zoom handle gets applied to this room for whatever time that they pick, and they can just walk right in there and start their meeting as if they're at their own desk. Really a very powerful feature there. And of course, with the new whiteboarding app on Zoom Rooms, you can save a whiteboard that you're working off at your desk or at home, come into the office, meet into one of these phone booths, recall that whiteboard session, pick up where you left off. Really a brilliant way to tie that all together. And here we are talking about workspace reservations. So if you've seen any of our videos from like Infocom or Enterprise Connect, this was something that we put right at the front of the booth. And the reason being is you can walk up to the DTEN Me Pro as a kiosk. And you can see that QR code on the right. Once you book your space, it pairs it to your personal Zoom handle using that QR code. It's so slick. It's so easy to use. You can see on the left, kind of in the background rather, you can see a workspace reservation map. So that's where you can really identify those spaces that are bookable areas for hybrid workers. And then once they come to their desk, they simply use their phone to reserve that space or to check in if they've reserved it already. And then that becomes your workstation for the day. So if you have been trying to think up a good solution for deploying hot desks for hybrid workers or in-office phone booths, this is really the way to do it. You simply throw a DTEN Me Pro in there. As I mentioned, you've got that cable that you can plug into the laptop if you want to access any of those BYOD features, or you can just use it as a Zoom Rooms device, right? You whiteboard right on top of it, recall a saved whiteboard session. There's so many applications of workspace reservation in Pro. Adrian, really quick, have you been talking to folks that have been trying to do this for hot desk, and what kind of experiences have you been hearing about?
So what's interesting about hot desk is, in hybrid solutions in general, is we've always had them in the office, right? It was, you had the hoteling experience in an office, right? Especially for large, diverse organizations that you had teams spread out all over the world. You come visit an office, you hotel somewhere. So what hot desking really is doing is taking that hoteling environment and making it more standardized, as individuals really aren't going to have set desk space in a lot of corporate environments. From what we're hearing is, you may, depending on your role within a company, your primary office may be your home. You'll come into the main office for specific meetings, team and environments. You'll bring your laptop and then you'll sit at a site. And what's great about what Zoom is doing with this is being able to remotely book your space, through the web, or if you're just dropping in real quick because you've got a meeting somewhere else, you just want to do some head down work. This really gives you a lot of flexibility and functionality. And the other interesting thing is, when you look at deployments for IT infrastructure, right? You're deploying users of laptops, headsets, and when you have a fixed desk, there's the monitor, there's the camera, there may be a secondary headset, there's the power supply, and a lot of IT environments looking, how can we scale that back? So when you look at all-in-one type of devices that have the, it's the monitor, it's the camera, it's the microphone, you can pair a headset to it. You might have a physical dock that might bring some of these other devices that might travel with the employee. They'll plug in, and then that's what's really allowing that. You book the space, you do your head down work, you do your work, and then you can go back to your remote office, which is generally, your home or maybe a satellite office, and it cuts down on that footprint overall.
Yeah, it's great. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, if any of you would like to try to use DTEN Me Pro, if you want to just kind of give it a try in one of your spaces, try to deploy one of these hoteling situations, or these use cases rather. There's we've got right on our website, we have the ability to request a demo there, and then at the end of this deck, I'll have a link you can either click or you can scan. Great way to just kind of get a firsthand account of how this all works and how it can work in your space. So, while Adrian was providing some information on hot desking, I was looking through the Q&As that you guys have been sending in, and again, great engagement there. Thank you very much. A lot of questions about D7X, and I'm so glad that you're so interested in this product. Really, it's an amazing new solution from D10. It really is the best I mean, it's the latest, greatest, most, excuse my French, it's the most badass product that we've made so far. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing. And Adrian, when you're ready, he's going to give us a live demonstration of how the D7X works, how it can work in your space. And we'll take a look at some of the new BYOD features. We'll take a look at how to launch into a space with D7X. Let me go ahead and stop sharing now.
So yeah, here's the interactive portion of our webinar. So behind me is our D7X, and my little lab office is about a 10 by 12 room. So you can see, and right now you're just seeing it as a Zoom room. And what's nice and unique is we have the ability to use BYOD, and I like showing BYOD first because generally what that means is I can configure my space if I wanted a Zoom room, and in the future we'll be doing Teams once we reach that certification. But I've picked my primary conferencing solution, and quite often, Zoom's got a great interop environment, right? Working with Teams and WebEx and GoToMeeting and now Google Meet, which is still sort of a very robust public beta. But I've got users that don't want to do interop. And there's usually because there's features, there's bells, there's things that don't always quite work. So BYOD is the most effective. So I can plug in my laptop, and we support two methods for BYOD. One, you can use a straight USB-C, which gives you the entire digital payload, or you could do USB and HDMI. So Zoom gives you this little, hey, I want to switch, I want to switch. And I'll start BYOD mode. And now you can see that on my screen is what I've got in my laptop. And so what's nice about that is I've got full touch capabilities. Oh, here's the today. I gotta love it when Microsoft doesn't update and doesn't let me know about it. Let's get rid of that.
Adrian, I think that was an excellent example of the USB touchback feature.
Yeah, well, usually I move stuff around and I can show you, hey, it's touch, and you can bring up your desk, bring up things like Windows Whiteboard, and you can do the whiteboarding. What's nice about what we've done is we support 20 points of touch. Now, Zoom doesn't support 20 points of touch today on Advanced Whiteboard or Classic Whiteboard. Classic Whiteboard is 10 points of touch. Advanced Whiteboard is 1 point of touch. When you have things like Microsoft Whiteboard, their whiteboarding tool only supports 1 point of touch. So even though we support a lot more than what is generally accepted, right? It's always last input. The hope is that these products and solutions and the other interactive products out there, like the Miro and the Murals, they both sound the same, so differently, will support more. So you really get that collaboration experience. And another nice thing too is just the responsiveness. The time that you have response-wise is extremely fast. So when these solutions start supporting touch, when you have multiple people interacting with the space, you're going to get real-time use out of it, which is really, really nice. The other nice thing about BYOD is if I want to use things like, hey, I've got Teams and I want to do my meeting in Teams, I can meet now and I can start my meeting in Teams on my desktop because it's doing BYOD, BYOM, my camera and my microphone. All of that is automatically selected as my peripheral, and I can go in and do my setups for those things and select my microphone and my camera and do that for a meeting, which is really powerful for an organization, because now you can certainly give a lot more flexibility in the space. You're not having to support multiple environments, read task rooms. You set it up how you want. And then the great thing is I can either switch back, I press the menu button in the back, I can hook a controller up to it with things like our Mate product or any sort of Zoom Room controller, or I just unplug. And when I unplug, it's going to go back to my standard Zoom room, or my Teams room. And now it's back to preferred, whatever you've picked as your UC environment. And then, if I want to join a meeting, I'll join this meeting, and Jackson will need to add me as a panelist, and we'll get the wonderful picture-in-picture environment.
Let's see if I can add you here to the webinar.
Yeah, because then we can actually see things like how the microphone works in a space, so you can hear it. We can bring up, some of these other features. Some of the features you're not going to be able to see because Zoom webinar, locks certain things down, which is fine. We'll see if unmute myself. You should be able to hear me. I'm going to start my video and change my view. So I can change my view to gallery. I can change my view to thumbnail. If it's going to let me do it. Yeah, I always love live demos because it says things don't work and then they do. You gotta love it. That's one of the weird, fun things about BYOD sometimes is the camera doesn't remember, but it tells me my camera is selected. So you always gotta love Zoom. And then there we go, the camera kicks in. I don't know why it does this. I'm gonna have to talk to my engineering about it again. But like I said, it's one of those weird things. It's all USB, and USB makes things fun. So like I said, I'm in a 10 by 12 room, and I'm not talking loud, I'm talking very normally. And what's great is we've done some work on our line array. We used to do 16 channels of microphones in the D7. We've gone down to 15, and what we've done is we've optimized our algorithm for our line array in order to, one, make us a little more compatible with Teams, but also improve that sound quality overall. So you can do things like I can turn my back to the camera, talk normally, and you should be able to hear a uniform sound across the board. And the other things is touch. We can bring up things like the whiteboarding tools in Zoom, so you have the wonderful whiteboarding. And like I said, classic whiteboard does 10 points of touch. Whereas when we do things like the advanced whiteboard that Zoom has got, which is really quite cool. I'm waiting for Zoom to push their update because there's some really exciting things on their roadmap that's going to really kind of make this a great product inside of Zoom. Like I said, it's only got 1 point of touch, and you can, zoom things out and do all those fun things with it overall. So really kind of fun things with that. The other nice thing that we have is certainly when we look at our camera control, we have things like auto framing. And with auto framing, it's going to track me when I have it turned on. Did I turn it on? Yes, I did. So with auto framing, the whole goal of auto framing is to try to frame the participants in the space, in the room, in the meeting. So it's just me right now, but if there were more people in here, it's going to try to fit us all in so it can get the best possible view of every participant. And that's a key thing when we talk about smart gallery. When you have smart gallery, they turn on something called multi-focus framing. And that's what allows every participant to be individually framed and stuck in their box. So being able to have an accurate auto framing that tracks participants and their movements is really important. And what DTEN does is we track head and shoulders, which is basically a passport photo type of view in that. Let's see. The other great thing about this is, hey, if I want to share content, right now I can do my wireless content sharing. I can plug my laptop back in. When I plug my laptop back in, it's going to recognize that I've got a BYOD device. I can start sharing that device. So now I get my entire wired infrastructure for my device. Now, what's interesting with Zoom today,
is when you're in thumbnail or gallery mode and you're sharing content, the XY coordinate mapping is off. But if I go to speaker view, what happens is it changes that and you actually get proper XY coordinate mapping. The other weird thing is if you hide your toolbar, if you have a toolbar in Zoom, the stop share button kind of covers it, but you can still get to stuff. You can still bring up things like, hey, if I wanted to bring up AutoCAD, or if I need to do some fun things with video or graphics, if I've got utilities for my office tools, I want to bring up other UC clients. Now you won't get the camera microphone, but you could certainly do a couple other things with that. The sky's the limit when you're sharing content with a wired solution. And we're back to the nested picture-in-picture, which is always so fun.
So Adrian, really quick before we switch back to the
and that just kind of is in a nutshell is the D7X. Another great thing with the D7X is this we support so we can support up to two displays. So when we talk about two displays on the D7X, that's going to be the D7X counts as one display, and then you can connect up to a secondary display. So you can make duals, but we do have an actual purpose-built dual, which does a couple cool things that this doesn't. I believe we might be showing that in this presentation. If not, talk to one of our sales, our AEs afterwards, and they'll walk you through our dual environment, which is a very cool demo. The other thing is, what's great is we've got all this functionality and power in the D7X. I can support extra peripherals, so I can connect things like Biamp, Clear One, Crestron, Extron, you name it. If they've got an external DSP that connects USB, we can talk to it. You can talk to it through Zoom. You can talk through it through Teams. Dante Audio works. You have the Dante Audio dongle. We've got an Avera soundbar mic array that we've been testing. Works really, really well. I'm partial to our microphone, but you can see we have a lot of flexibility with our technology and hardware. And also, if you've got external cameras, the Logitechs, the Vadios, the PTZ optics, you name it, because Zoom supports up to 2 additional cameras. So you can have 3 cameras besides this one, which comes into play when you look at Zoom in the future, when they enable what's going to be called multi-camera, multi-screen. That's the next iteration of Smart Gallery. And what that will mean is I'll be able to place cameras around the room to better get that meeting inclusivity, right? The buzzword of the day. And when that happens, you'll have multiple cameras. And with that, you'll place them around the room and they'll be able to take different camera angles to get all those participants. So when you have those spaces, that long rectangular table, you'll be able to kind of fit people in a little bit better, because that's kind of one of the things in a lot of how conference rooms are designed is, unfortunately, often they're not, like I said earlier, they're not great for Smart Gallery, because when you've got participants sitting a long table, shoulder to shoulder, and everyone kicks between a 35 to 45 degree angle to look at a screen, you sometimes get weird things with the AI. Bob and Steve look like one person. Janelle, camera may not even see Janelle. So that's really where some of those cool things that Zoom is doing is going to come into play this next year and the year afterwards.
Very cool.
So I believe we want to go on to the next step there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Adrian. Yeah, let's get back to. Yeah, we'll get back to the deck here. So, very cool. Yeah, the D7X. There's a question in there that I just want to talk about really briefly, and that was, how is it framed? Are all D7s enabled with BYOD mode? Yes and no. So the D7X, the big feature that you're seeing there that's new, the D7X, is the touchback feature that we saw. So when Adrian was actually controlling his screen from the whiteboard or from the actual D7, that one is brand new. So that's an incredibly powerful feature. So you saw him being able to flip through different windows, interact with some of the apps and things directly from the screen. That's huge because it allows you to actually collaborate and present at the board. You don't have to be walking back and forth or using a clicker for your laptop. You can just do it directly from the screen. So that allows for a much more natural presentation format, much more natural conversations in meetings overall. So, so the D7X, brand new, it's available now. It's available in 55-inch, available in 75-inch. Windows and Android editions are available. It's very easy to set up, just like all of our other DTEN products, right out of the box and onto the wall in minutes and into your first meeting. That's super easy. So there's all new camera systems involved that you're seeing Adrian walk through quite a bit. And it's I think the touch is pretty much the same, right? It's that 20-point touch. I mean, you're not going to have 20 folks up there all interacting with the board at the same time. So there's not a whole lot of room to improve from there at the moment.
Yeah, it's like I kind of mentioned earlier, is that even though we have the hardware built that we think exceeds a lot of the specifications from devices from UC clients like Zoom and Teams, the hardware's ready, but the software is somewhat behind. So a lot of those things we're waiting on for the software. So implementing certain functions and features, the software dictates the hardware's functionality. And what DTEN generally does is when the software is ready, we'll do a firmware update to get the hardware in line with the software. So we're usually a little forward thinking on a lot of that. So someone asked the question a little bit about Windows casting. So with Teams, currently what we're seeing, what Microsoft has requested, is we're doing hardwired HDMI ingest, and we do that through our BYOD functionality. But that certainly is something that's going to be available and talked about as we get further on with our certifications with Microsoft and seeing how Microsoft wants that implemented. Because a lot of it is I said earlier, is the software is dictating how the hardware functions.
Very cool. Well, I just in the interest of time, let's go ahead and jump into some of the new stuff that we're going to be seeing coming out in the next quarter. And before we do that, I want to ask you guys another question. So let's talk about cross-platform. I think this is one of the challenges that we were looking at earlier. What kind of issues have you been having with cross-platform compatibility in your plans for the new hybrid office? So I just launched the poll. Certainly we want to hear from you guys. When we talk about cross-platform, we're talking about, folks want to use Zoom rooms, folks want to use Teams, Ring Central. Maybe you're interacting with vendors and third-party folks that are preferring one or the other, right? We've all been in that meeting where somebody doesn't really know how to use Teams, or they're not sure exactly how to share their screen on Zoom rooms. Right, that's just that kind of platform conflict that we've become, very comfortable and familiar with. So yeah, so let's throw the results up on the big screen. So yes, absolutely, at 47%, cross-platform has been a challenge. So, one thing that I think Adrian alluded to a minute ago is cross-platform conflict. Here, let's come back to the dual. But before that, let's talk a little bit about this very powerful image. Here is the D7X for Microsoft Teams. And I'm kind of blowing the lid off this one right now. We're going to be showing this next week for the first time at ISE. And this is a D7X with a native Microsoft Teams for Android operating system. So the D7X will be the first DTEN solution certified for Microsoft Teams. Certification is coming a little bit later, February. It'll be available in late Q1. So you'll be able to extend the award-winning DTEN video meeting experience. It'll be natively available to Microsoft Teams. So we are so close to launching this. Right, as Adrian pointed out, Teams, there's a lot of requirements for that certification process to make sure that these products deliver on that experience. We've been working so hard on this one for a while. It's been a lot of demand for Teams, and really I'm pleased to announce that we'll soon be delivering on this. So keep an eye on a lot of coverage coming out of ISE next week. You'll be seeing the D7X with the Teams operating system. So before we jump in Q&A. One last thing that we want to talk about is the dual. You probably saw it at the beginning, at the top of the hour. I think there's an image on our standby screen. So the D7X dual 55-inch, it'll be available in 75-inch as well a little bit later on. 55-inch, really unique. You can see it in the photo right here. The video camera is centrally located at the middle of the dual system, which is unique in the market right now. There's nothing quite like it. So it provides that face-to-face, eye-level interaction. So when you put this thing in the room, you put it on the wall, so that camera hits eye level with everybody in the room. It's so much more of a natural conversation you're having with folks, because a lot of times cameras are mounted above, and then you end up with this sort of like overhead shot where you're talking to tops of people's heads, or it's mounted below the display and you're looking up at everybody's chins, which also isn't super ideal. So to have this camera centrally located right in the middle, it's so natural to meet that way. Having the two displays, it's a perfect balance of people plus content. So in Zoom rooms, you can select the left screen or the right display to be the primary content sharing screen, and then participant view will be on the opposite side. That's if you're sharing. Otherwise, you just have two 55 or 75-inch screens for just an incredible amount of remote participants to come in to be a part of that conversation. So the central bar there also is incorporating next generation microphone and audio technology. So there's sort of the next generation of DTEN microphones are built right into the middle of this center bar. And then also there's front-facing speakers, which is huge as well. Very powerful. So it's available for pre-order now, actually. So if you do want to try the D7X Dual, if this is something that you want to get a feel for, definitely reach out to us. You can use the link I'll put up on the screen in just a minute. You can go to our website. You can contact your AE. If you don't know who to talk to, you reach out to me. You can follow up with the webinar email string, and I can point you into the right direction. So that's the 55-inch Dual. Super cool product. A little bit more information about that. It's also the first D10 solution that has a built-in physical privacy shutter. And this is a very, very powerful feature. So that camera in the middle, there's a round, I don't know what you call it. It's like basically it physically covers the entire camera, and it's enabled by the actual action of starting the camera in the meeting. So when you launch your Zoom Rooms call, when this is in your meeting room, the camera is covered by default. Once you enable the camera like you do in any meeting, that's when the privacy shutter immediately snaps open. Amazing action. It blows me away every single time I see it. It's super cool. And of course, you got the 4K capacitive multi-touch display. You've got a 4K camera in the middle, 8 microphone array in this guy. Built-in operating system. It's got has a brain right in the back of the unit. All in one. Very easy to set up. Comes with mounting guides right out of the box. You're up in your first meeting in minutes. So that's the new D7X Dual.
Yeah, and you may notice that, we have, on our standard D7X and even the D7, we have, 16 to 15 microphones. The Dual has only 8. There's a couple reasons for that. One is we've optimized those microphones in the Dual. They're orientated differently. They're a little bit bigger than the microphones in the array mics for the D7X. And what's great about it is they still provide that same uniform quality. So we have one of our field members will do it. Does a demo like what he did. I did. Turns his back, walks around his room. He's got a room that's much larger than mine. 20 odd feet back of the room. You still hear that same fidelity and quality in his voice. There's no wavering, and it's a really, and then you will see the camera, how functional that camera is at distance. I mean, great product. Really, the 55-inch model right now that is currently in pre-order, suited for small, medium conference rooms. Some large conference rooms, you don't want to go past 16, 18 participants, but there are plans for larger screens going forward. So.
Cool. We talked about Teams, and now we're almost at the top of the hour. So there are a couple of questions out there that still have yet to be answered. Adrian, I know you've just been jamming through Q&A questions this entire session, which is so cool. There are some larger questions that I'm seeing here about devices for government that I think it just prompts a larger conversation. So we'll probably reach out to you directly for those kinds of questions. But here's a really good one about the Android versus the Windows D7X. Adrian, would you mind summarizing quickly what kind of feature differences you see between those two products?
So the whole goal is that there will be parity functionality between the operating systems. So whether you purchase an Android-based D7X or a Windows-based D7X, that functionality will be the same between the two. There may be some subtle differences, certainly just how those operating systems function, when it comes to back-end management, things like network settings and so on. But the whole goal is that a IT environment, they will, you'll pick the hardware based on what you're going to use. You're going to have customers who want to use Windows. You're going to have customers that say, we don't want to deal with Windows. We're fine with Android. And then it's going to come down to, how you're deploying your UC client, whether that's Zoom or Teams, and what you're most comfortable with in your environment.
Cool. There's a really good question from Casey Marsh asking about sort of a center of the room solution. And this is something that we talk about a lot as well, where, our solutions are designed to mount on walls. So it's kind of this idea where if you're sitting around a table, you want to look in on a solution, right? You can kind of do that with the DTEN onboard, adding that to a D7X. You can move the onboard throughout the room. You can really open up the room that way. We have explored some options for cameras that you can connect to your devices and place them, in certain different areas of the room. But largely, we really want to centralize that interaction with the display, where you've got the touchscreen whiteboard, the shared content, and also the camera, the microphone, everything all in one. It's just so easy to use. It's, anybody can walk into that room and immediately know how to interact with it. So, stay tuned for that. We're continuing to explore options there, but there's nothing immediately on the horizon, I think, just to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a lot of solutions over the years, sort of that 360 view. Yeah, and, a lot of different manufacturers have come up with solutions. Some of them work really well, some of them don't work so well. And I think you're kind of, as Casey was saying, it's kind of, there's some, there's issues with a lot of that. What we kind of look at is, at least from a all-in-one environment, is the participants can kind of use it however they need to. I think one of the most powerful use cases that a DTEN does is with DTEN on a mobile device, on a mobile cart, right? Because now you have you don't need a lot of infrastructure. Power, data can be wireless. You certainly use wired networking, but you can use a wireless network. Now you've got a device that you can move anywhere in your room, right? So you can do your conferencing. You can do those ad hoc huddle spaces. And certainly with the optimization we have in our AIs for our camera and our microphone, and some new features that we'll be bringing forward within the next couple months, just kind of optimizing the audio quality and microphones and being able to fence things in the future, that really going to give you a lot of power, sort of these ad hoc, maybe open spaces and so on, to try to get you, where you want to be in these conference spaces.
Well, with that, thank you everybody again for sticking it out with us this morning. I know time is so incredibly scarce these days, and I've asked you now for 57 minutes of it. So thank you so much. Really, really appreciate the interaction. Love the Q&A questions. There are a few questions that are still remaining. We'll reach out to you guys immediately following the webinar. Keep an eye out for an email from me. A lot of requests for that hybrid work map. I'll get that to you guys so you can use it. Love you all. Have a great day and a great winter. Talk soon. Thanks.